where is the line between getting your child to listen and turning them into a people pleaser? My name's Jodie Thornton, and I want to talk about this because it's an issue for a lot of gentle parents where there are times when we really do need our kids to listen, and we really struggle with the idea that, like, are we planting seeds that will turn them into people pleasing? Now, for the most part, the gentle parents that I speak to, we're doing a good enough job of not setting our kids up to always look to people please, right? We're doing a great job of validating their emotions, prioritizing their needs when we can. And then there's just these times where things need to happen, and I see one of two kind of problems coming up. One is that we're worried about wanting them to acquiesce, and so then we put off holding boundaries, or we put off setting limits, or we put off getting them to do the things that they need to do, to the point where we end up becoming reactive. So we say things in a harsher tone than we expected, or we snap or yell, or we say something that we really wish we didn't because we waited too long, because we were trying to avoid using power over. We're trying to avoid making them acquiesce, but then we leave it so long that we end up being reactive ourselves, because whatever it is that we need them to listen about is actually really important, and there's no more compromising that we can do. We just need them to listen, right? Then the other thing that happens is that we do kind of get to the point where it's like, no, this is a boundary, you need to listen. And there is a set of skills that we don't talk enough about in most gentle parenting spaces that make the difference between this is important and this is why we need to do it, and you just can't question me here. And we see this a lot in the conversations in gentle parenting that are saying that both parents need to be on the same page. Now, the only reason you need to be on the same page on anything that's in relation to getting your child to listen is if you're trying to tell your child, like, give your child the message, there's no point of you like protesting this, because you're not going to get a different answer from anybody. Right? You're going to get the same answer from both of us, so therefore don't worry about protesting. But here's the thing, if they are protesting, that tells us that there's something not working for them. And this is where we want to get into like a real skill building phase in gentle parenting, where what we're doing is getting kids to listen for the right reasons, right? It's not just about that they do the thing, but they do the thing in a way that doesn't cause them to develop beliefs about themselves, or a habit of, maybe not all of the time people pleasing, but there's certain parts of life where we do need to people please. We want to avoid that piece, right? Where we want to get to is a place where when you or anyone else asks your child to do something, they are able to either agree for the right reasons or tell the person, this is why I don't want to do this, and now let's problem solve together. Now, of course, there'll be examples where problem solving is not, the onus is not on the person who's been asked to help solve the problem. But in most of our close relationships, we really want problem solving as a team to be the default whenever there's an issue. Like whenever there's any disagreement, we want problem solving to be the default. So if we think about what does that look like day to day, is when you need your child to do something, our aim is always that we do it in a way that works for both of us. And most of the time when I talk to gentle parents who are doing a really good job of validating feelings and a really good job of prioritizing their child's perspectives and needs, when it comes to things that the child is not listening, it feels like it's either just straight defiance, like it doesn't have any purpose behind it, or it feels like this is just something that I just need them to acquiesce. It's just the way it goes. And ultimately, either of those situations are so actually rare, and I would almost go to the point of saying they don't happen, because there's always a reason for their no, right? Always a reason for them not listening. And when we look at it as just defiance, or like it's a power struggle, or when we look at it as, this is just something that they need to do, they have to acquiesce, we're missing the chance to find a solution that works for them too. And we want to go into all of these examples with a default that their aim is for us to look for a solution that works for both of us. So if we look at teeth brushing, right, very common battleground for parents, we want to look at, what is your child's aversion to toothbrushing? Is it that they don't want to stop what they were doing? Is it that they don't like the sensation? Is it that they find it boring? Is it like, you can see how all of these different examples, there's a different solution to those. Now, because we were, for the most part, parents in this generation, we were raised that if something has to be done, you just have to get on and do it, right? Whether it's teeth brushing or taxes or having a shower or, any of the things that just have to be done, we were taught to not pay attention to what's important to us and acquiesce and do the thing, right? And so then sometimes we struggle because when we're parenting, when we've been raised this way, we look at how many ways in which our child is able to be prioritized, right? Their needs and their perspective are prioritized all of this, substantial amount of time. So can you not just brush your teeth, right? Like, come on, we've prioritized you all day. We have to do this every day. Why can't we just get it done? Right? Because from our perspective, if we had somebody prioritizing us most of the time, we would gladly give up our own needs in a small amount of time in order to, it's almost like repayment or like reciprocity, but that's actually not reciprocity. It feels like it to us, but because of how we were raised. But actually, when we're talking about these kinds of examples, that's like, whose turn is it to acquiesce, right? We want to move away from that. We want to look at what is the root of the problem and then find a solution that works. So in the teeth brushing example, they don't want to stop what they're doing, right? Well, how do we find a way to make that easier? Is it a timer? I know they don't always work, but for some kids they do. Is it that there's a certain break in the play that can happen? Is it like we're looking for what is the solution that works for both of us? If it's the sensation, what can we do to distract you from the sensation, right? Can we play a song? Can I massage you while you brush your teeth? Can we do it as thoroughly? Can I do it for you so that we do it thoroughly and quickly, so we spend the least amount of time actually brushing the teeth? We're looking for what actually solves the problem. That's our kind of default. The second thing I want to say is that when someone needs to acquiesce, so there are times where we're kind of building the skill to find those solutions that work for everybody, and also particularly so you might not have the skill, but also you might not have the time. Sometimes finding options and experimenting with what will work, we just don't have the time in the example that we're in to actually be able to problem solve together. And in those cases, someone will need to acquiesce. Now, if you can, I think it's a good idea to be the one to acquiesce when you can, right? Because if I just use that example, teeth brushing is one that we can't really acquiesce on, right? We need to brush as often as our dentists recommend. I'm not the right person to ask, what the minimums are for that. But we want to make sure that because there's so many parts of our children's lives where they do have to acquiesce, because our culture is not set up to allow us to prioritize the needs of our children all the time. And it takes a while for us to get really good at problem solving. That being the case, if you can acquiesce, then be the one to acquiesce. The one exception for that is if you acquiescing is going to dysregulate you, because if you end up dysregulated, then that's going to impact your child as well, right? So there's a little bit of nuance there. But when you can, be the one to acquiesce. Now, if your child needs to be the one to acquiesce, explain to them why you need them to acquiesce, right? Why is it so important that they do the thing even though we haven't found a solution, right? So you might say, "Sweetie, I'm so sorry, we just don't have time to find a different option right now." Right? And if this is something that happens regularly, you can say, next time we will definitely, or this afternoon, we can come up with some options so that the next time this comes up, we've got some better choices. But this time, I'm going to need you to whatever the thing is. So we're really looking for explaining that your intention is to find a solution that works for them. That builds trust and makes it easier, that this isn't just arbitrary, right? That you aren't just declaring that their needs don't matter. And in that process, you can also validate their needs, right? So you can say that, you understand how uncomfortable the sensation of brushing your teeth is, and we're trying so hard to find a way to make it easier for you. But seeing as we haven't found one, we're going to need to brush your teeth tonight, right? And then we're just going to go ahead and do it. We're looking at this way in a way that says it's not required for you to be the one to acquiesce all the time, right? This is not a situation that requires you to just forget what's important to you and suppress your feelings about it. What we're saying is we just don't have a solution right now. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is actually catching the times where your child is acquiescing, because for most of us, we didn't learn gentle parenting before, our children were old enough that it mattered. And so then we're learning as we go. And sometimes before we learn about validating their needs and about prioritizing what works for them, sometimes our children have already internalized some people pleasing. Now, it also can happen if you're not expecting them to acquiesce at home at all, but when they go to daycare, they might have, you get what you get and you don't get upset, or, those kinds of messages that happen, whether it's daycare or school or whoever's looking after them during the day. Like, there are other influences that can come into play that have taught your child that sometimes they have to acquiesce. Or it's important, you see this a lot in certain friendships, right? Where one child is the one who sets the rules all the time, and it's my way or you don't play the game, right? That's really, really common in young kids because they haven't yet built the skills to navigate that in a way that works for everybody, right? So what we're looking for is noticing when your child is acquiescing and bring awareness to them. It's like, sweetie, you said yes to me this afternoon when I asked you to help put away the groceries. I'm not sure if you really wanted to do that. It feels like you did it even though you didn't want to, right? Now, here's the thing. We're not saying that they should never help pack away the groceries, right? What we're looking for is a process that works for everybody. So if we use the groceries example, it's like, what if they really dislike putting heavy things away? Well, can we share the load so that they get the light things? Is it that they just really don't like putting the groceries away because it has to be done when it arrives, whereas another chore they could help with, they can do at a different time, right? At the time that's more convenient for them. And we're looking for, it's not about let's revolve our world around what's important for the child, but it's also not they always have to acquiesce. We're looking for a solution that actually works for both you and your child and the whole family that's involved, right? Always looking for that thing, but giving them permission to say, sweetie, if you don't want to do something, I want you to tell me, right? Or if you didn't feel comfortable, I want to know about it because I want to find a solution. And it might be something like, say, for example, it's like going to grandma's house for dinner. It's like, it might be like, when I chose to say yes to going to grandma's house for dinner, I thought that we would all feel like it on the day, and you don't feel like it today. And I'm so sorry, but we've made plans. We are going to need to go, but let's talk about, is it the end of the week you're always tired? Or, like, see where I'm going with this? It's always looking for giving them permission to speak up for what doesn't feel right to them and looking for the solution. And then the last thing I want to talk about is, again, with that internalized people pleasing, which can happen because I certainly did not have my skills down pat for any one of my 4 children when it first started. So we're looking for the ways that they might have internalized the people pleasing through our skills, or even if we are the parent who has always had their skills down pat and not expecting any acquiescing, they can get those messages from other places, right? One of the things we need to figure out is, to what extent are they suppressing their own feelings because they know they're expected to acquiesce? And how do we find that out? One of the ways is by building their awareness of how things feel in their body. Because when they, when we're suppressing our feelings, often we still get the physical sensation. We're just choosing to not pay attention to it. So what we can do for that is routinely doing things like asking them, how does it feel in their body when they play with their best friend? Or how does it feel in their body when they're having a bath? And even times when you're relaxing at night, like say you're getting ready for bed, you might ask them, like, how do your legs feel right now? How does your tummy feel right now? Just bringing that awareness to them about what's going on in their body. Another thing is just asking the question, like, hey, when this happened, how was that for you? Right? We're just inviting them to notice how the sensations in their bodies, and we're inviting them to notice, did they really agree with that? right? Did they really want to do that willingly? And it's okay for them to do something out of consideration for someone else. It's okay for them to do something out of contribution to someone else, like wanting to help or support somebody is totally valid. The key is, are they sacrificing their own needs in order to do it? Right? We don't want them to be sacrificing. We want them to be willingly giving because it feels good, right? That's where we want to end up. So I hope this has been really helpful. It's a big topic. So if you have any questions about what I've talked about, or even any tangents where it's like, okay, that's what this makes me think about as well, please do let me know. You can email me, jodie@jodiethornton.com. You can send me a message or reply to any emails I send you. I would love to hear any questions you have around this. Now, if you're wanting to build up your skills of getting your child to listen for the right reasons, I've got a webinar, Getting Strong-Willed Kids to Listen. You can register for that at jodiethornton.com/listen. And in that webinar, I talk about the process of how to ask your child and help them to see like the reasons why you need them to do something, so that doesn't feel like a power struggle or arbitrary for them to begin with. How to help them to articulate why they don't want to do something. And then how do we get to that problem solving space? How do we make it our default for problem solving? And finally, looking at what happens when we just need to hold the line, right? When it's something that we need to have a boundary around, or if it's something that we really want to find a solution, but we just haven't gotten to that place yet, right? All of those pieces will be covered in that webinar. And so you can register for that at jodiethornton.com/listen. And I would love to hear, as I said, any questions you have. It's a really, really big topic, and I would love to hear any questions that you have. Thanks for watching.